Dhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagatarya Stotara Shata Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagatarya Stotara Shata Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Ganga Maya Ki Yamuna Maya Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hare Krishna. We are unfortunately bereft of His Grace Yugala Kishore Prabhu's class giving, so you'll have to be stuck with me for today. Firstly, just would like to seek the blessings before I start of all the assembled Vaishnavas here, especially His Grace Krishna Kripa Prabhu, so that I can speak something of proper utilization for our path of devotional service. So we're on the third canto, chapter 27, entitled Understanding Material Nature. And we're on text 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet Shinvata swakata Krishna punya shavana kirtana Ridantasto hyabadrani virunoti suhitsyatam Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. There's no sound. Okay, so there's sound this is bouncing. So that means you have to go to the soundboard and you have to turn up the volume on the red thing that says man. It says man, mano. Under the specific thing that the microphone is putting sound out as. And then check if this is plugged in properly and check if this is plugged in properly. Because it's moving up and down. Now it's too loud. I can't even see it. It's bouncing too high. Can you hear it? Nothing? Try unplugging that and plugging it back in. Sound is fine, there's no problem. Sound is fine. Okay. Yatajalasta abasa. Yatajalasta abasa. Stalashtenna vadrishyate. Stalashtenna vadrishyate. Swabhasena tata suryo. Swabhasena tata Nitajalasta abasa. Tata surya jalastena divistita yata jalasta abasa stalastena vajrishyate swabhasena tata surya jalastena divistita Yata jalasta abasa stalastena vajrishyate Verse 12, Jayananda Prabhu. Yata as jalastaha situated on water, abasa a reflection, stalastena situated on the wall, avajrishyate is perceived, swabhasena by its reflection, tata In that way, Suryaha, the sun, Jalastena, situated on the water, Divi, in the sky, Stitaha, situated. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized first as a reflection on water, and again as a second reflection on the wall of a room, although the sun itself is situated in the sky. The example given herewith is perfect. This is a purport. The sun is situated in the sky, far, far away from the surface of the earth, but its reflection can be seen in a pot of water in the corner of a room. The room is dark, and the sun is far away in the sky, but the sun's reflection on the water illuminates the darkness of the room. A pure devotee can realize the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything by the reflection of his energy. In the Vishnu Purana, it is stated that the presence of fire is understood by heat and light. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although one without a second, is perceived everywhere by the diffusion of his energies. It is confirmed in the Ishopanishad that the presence of the Lord is perceived everywhere by the liberated soul, just as the sunshine and the reflection can be perceived everywhere, although the sun is situated far away from the surface of the globe. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamshta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamshta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Yashadeve Parabhaktir Yatadeve Tataguro Tasyate Katita Hyarta Prakashate Mahatmanaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yatajalasta abasa stalastena vajrishyate swabhava sena tata suryo jalastena divistitaha. The presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized first as a reflection on water, and again as a second reflection on the wall of a room, although the sun itself is situated in the sky. Hare Krishna. So here Krishna is given to be an example of the sun. And the sun is shining everywhere, and in this example it's being reflected on a vat of, like a pool of water, or a pot of water. And then that reflection from the water is going from there and reflecting onto the wall. Just like if anyone's gone in like a swimming pool or something during the daytime, you'll see light that comes in, and you'll see a reflection that comes off the water, and it's kind of like, it's like a wavy thing on the wall. You know what I'm talking about. So that Krishna is the sun, of course, and then the water is kind of like this material nature. This is an expansion of Krishna's energies, and that reflection of light is actually what we're seeing, like what we're experiencing, and then the basis of that inference is actually kind of a reflection of our state of consciousness. So first someone might look at the wall and be quite bewildered by this light that's moving, and it's strange, and you don't know where it's coming from because maybe you're not seeing the pot of water. It's in a dark room that Prabhupada's talking about in this purport. So the sunlight coming through is reflecting on that water. But when one actually traces that back, then they're actually, the bewilderment dissipates. Because they're able to actually understand that this light is coming from the pot, which is coming from the sun. So naturally, there's two main states of vision or consciousness. And those states are material consciousness, and there's Krishna or spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. So in our basic conditioned state, we're in a material consciousness. Why? Because we're walking on the street and we see a beautiful woman, or we see a flower, or we see food, and we think it's for our enjoyment. So it's a subtle difference sometimes. Someone might actually externally be looking like they're spiritually conscious, but the basis is actually an internal process. It's an internal spiritual consciousness. So it's what we're thinking when we're seeing these things. The spiritual consciousness is actually the capability to see everything for Krishna's enjoyment, to utilize everything in Krishna's service. Because actually when we do that, it's our proper form of enjoyment as well. So then we can kind of come to the point of, okay, well, I'm a conditioned soul, and I have many conditioned psychophysical natures and idiosyncronicities that I have to deal with on a daily basis. So why is it that I'm not experiencing pure Krishna consciousness? Why is it that I can't actually see Krishna everywhere? The basis of this can be answered in the Bhagavad Gita, or actually at least how we can start this process. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. So Krishna is actually revealing the way by which we can receive this knowledge. In text 34 in the 4th chapter. So the guru is actually one that imparts this knowledge unto us. Jnaninas tattva, or because is upadekshanti te jnanam. He's giving us knowledge. Why? Because jnaninas tattvadarshina. And another nice verse from the Vedas, actually from the Rig Veda, that's commonly used in deity worship for purifications or before we're doing achman, things like that. Om tad Vishnu paramam padam sada pashyanti suraya deviva chakshuratatam tad vipraso vipanyavo jagarvagam samsamindate Vishnu yat paramam padam. So this is saying that actually just as the sun's rays in the skies are extended to the mundane vision, so we're in darkness and the sun's rays are extending to enlighten our eyes, so in the same way the wise and learned devotees are always seeing the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu, or Krishna. Because those highly praiseworthy and spiritually awake brahmanas are able to see the spiritual world, they are also able to reveal that supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. So how is this actually revealed? This is actually revealed through Krishna Nam. When we are in this Kali Yuga, as Kali Yuga creatures, we've been given the Yuga Dharma to chant Hare Krishna, to chant the names of Krishna. And these saintly persons actually bestow a taste upon us for chanting. And through Nam, everything is actually revealed. We don't need to go anywhere else. Of course, we need kata, we need service for purification and for actually a deeper understanding. It's said that the kata of the holy name is the Swarup Shakti of the holy name. Kata of Krishna is the Swarup Shakti of the holy name. So that it formulates our basis of developing a deeper connection. But the purpose is to always be chanting. And sometimes we think this is a misconception that, well, we have to be fully focused on this service or we have to be fully focused on this. But no, actually, all of our services are facilitated in chanting. If you look at deity worship, all the mantras we're using are chanting the names of Krishna. If you look at cooking, we're trying to think of Krishna. What's the best way to think of Krishna? You chant. What do you say when you offer prasadam, when you offer bhoga to the Lord? You're chanting the names of the Lord. So all these processes are meant to be dovetailed in the service of chanting the Lord's names. Because then when we're doing these things, there's a great example of a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I can't remember his name. I'm sure Krishna Kripa Prabhu will tell me. But he was the cook in Vrindavan for a very long time for the deities. And I can't remember Prabhu's name for some reason. But yeah. And devotees were complaining about him not chanting his 16 rounds. Because all day he was fully engaged in service. But the thing is that when he was engaged in service, he was chanting all day. He was non-stop chanting. Whether he was going grocery shopping, whether he was cooking, whether he was cleaning the dishes, it didn't matter. He was always chanting. So Prabhupada didn't have a problem with this. Because this is the actual goal. It's not like, that chanting and service is separate. Like, Nam Seva is the highest form of Seva. So yes, through the pure devotees, through the spiritual master, we're actually able to receive that taste for the holy name. It's actually said when you receive first initiation in ISKCON from the Guru, then the Guru is actually giving you their taste for the holy name. And so we're actually the only ones that are getting in the way of that. When we're ready, the Guru will naturally actually fully allow us to experience the taste that he has. So I just am reflecting on this beautiful bhajan by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. O he Vaishnava Thakur doyara sagara, edase koruna kori. O Venerable Vaishnava, O Ocean of Mercy, be merciful unto your servant. Diya pada chaya, soda he amaya tomara charana dhori. Forgive me for my poor Bengali. Give me the shade of your lotus feet and purify me. I hold on to your lotus feet. Choya bega domi, choya dasa sodi, choya guna deho dase. Choya satsanga deho e amore, boshechi sangerase. Teach me to control my 6 passions, rectify my 6 faults. Bestow upon me the 6 qualities, and offer unto me the 6 kinds of association. These are nice. It's also in line with Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Instruction. And then the 3rd verse, this is really nice. Ekakiya mara nahi paya bala harinama sankirtane. I do not find the strength to carry on alone the Sankirtan movement of the holy name of Hari. Amito tumi kripa kori sharabindu diya deho Krishna name dhane. Please bless me by giving me just 1 drop of faith with which to obtain the greatest treasure of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna se tomara, Krishna dite paro, tomara shakati ache. Amito kangala, Krishna Krishna boli, dai tava pache pache. Krishna is yours, so you have the power to give him to me. I am simply running behind you shouting, Krishna, Krishna. So, to see everything present everywhere, like the sun's rays are present, to see Krishna present everywhere, we need to have a taste for the holy name. And to have a taste for the holy name, we have to have greed to get that taste from Vaishnavas who have it. And without that greed, it's not possible to chant the holy name purely. So we have to seek out that association. We actually have to be very greedy for it. I remember when I first started in Krishna consciousness, I'm still a very big time neophyte, but when I was first introduced to Krishna consciousness, people were a little bewildered that I was so eager to just go up to people and talk to them. And it kind of then, like when I saw that people kind of had this subtle reaction as to how I would be approaching like these elevated spiritual teachers and things like that, I was a little too familiar. I was a little fearful. And then I realized actually that the next time I approached in a different way, there was also a strange reciprocation. Because if you have, when we're interacting with these really elevated souls, we actually have to understand that they're also persons. And just like when we're interacting with our spiritual master, we're serving our spiritual master, there's this like really important balance to have between awe and reverence and also understanding that we have a personal relationship with our spiritual master. I've noticed it firsthand that when you have too much awe and reverence, or of course it's relative based on the relationship with the individual spiritual master, but for me I realized that the relationship actually becomes stunted a bit. If you have too much awe and reverence, you actually limit the personal connection that you have with the spiritual master. But then of course on the other side, if you're too familiar with the spiritual master, it's incredibly offensive. because then you're actually beginning to consider the spiritual master like an ordinary human being. What's that? It's the third offense to the holy name. So, yeah, it's very important. Of course, the spiritual master manifests himself in different ways. Through the Diksha, the Diksha Guru is one that initiates us and connects us to our line of acharyas formally. But that spiritual master is also manifests as our Shiksha Gurus. And so these are actually equally important. And so we should always be eager, we'll realize that the more we progress, we'll be more eager to receive mercy from those other devotees who have that taste for the holy name as well. So, yeah, Krishna gives us many ways to see him in the material world. Of course, we were just talking about ways that you can see Krishna through the form of the deity, through the form of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is a representative of Krishna. So, in one sense, we're interacting with Krishna. Krishna is also very merciful that he's come in the form of the Archa Vigraha, that we can see Krishna in this wonderful form, Shri Shri Radha Govinda and Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna and Govinda Shila and Shri Giriraj. They've come here for us to worship them in this way because, why? We don't have the eyes to actually see them. So through these different processes, we're able to interact with Krishna on different platforms. But also, Krishna gives us a multitude of more ways to see him. For example, in the second canto of the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, in the first chapter, Shukadeva Goswami first starts talking about this kind of universal form of Krishna. And so, I remember when I first started reading this, I thought this was so cool. Only to find out that actually this form isn't necessarily an actual thing. It's more of like a way for impersonalists to think of Krishna. But when I first started reading it, I thought it was so cool, that there's so many. Let's see if I can find it. Anyways, I don't know if I have internet on here, so I'm not going to search it up. But the basis is seeing that the mountains are like Krishna's bones and the rivers are like Krishna's veins, and so it's a way for us to think of Krishna. I remember I'd be walking and it said the trees are like the hairs on Krishna's body. So I was traveling in the van at the time and I was looking and I was like, wow, I'm actually thinking of Krishna, of course in an indirect way. But it was amazing to see how that actually was so purifying, that just by seeing that as those things as connected with Krishna, it totally changes your consciousness. And then I wanted to actually, read this last verse of that chapter, because I thought it was very nice. The second canto, first chapter. I'll just read the English. One should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him, the only all-blissful absolute truth. Otherwise, one will be misled and will cause his own degradation. And so Prabhupada's purport's very nice here, so I'm going to read some of it. In this verse, the process of devotional service is indicated by the great Goswami Srila Sukadeva. He tries to impress upon us that instead of diverting our attention to several branches of self-realization, we should concentrate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the supreme object of realization, worship, and devotion. Self-realization is, as it were, offering a fight for eternal life against the material struggle for existence. And therefore, by the illusory grace of the external energy, the yogi or the devotee is faced with many allurements which can entangle a great fighter again in the bondage of material existence. This is so amazing. I'm going to read this one more time. Self-realization is, as it were, offering a fight for eternal life against the material struggle for existence. And therefore, by the illusory grace of the external energy, the yogi or the devotee is faced with many allurements, and which can entangle a great fighter again in the bondage of material existence. It's so interesting that by the illusory grace of the external energy, that the yogi is faced, or the devotee is faced with allurements, which can entangle you again. So once again, Prabhupada is describing that Krishna is present everywhere. In Prabhupada's purport to the 19th verse of the 7th chapter in the Gita, Prabhupada also talks about this, that we should actually be seeing, we come to a point where we actually see everything as Krishna's mercy. Think about that for a second. Everything that's going on in our lives is a form of Krishna's mercy. Imagine if we had that consciousness at all times. Naturally, you wouldn't have problems. Everything would just become an opportunity to think of Krishna. It would be an opportunity to remember Krishna. It would be an opportunity to serve Krishna's devotees, to advance in our spiritual life. But because we're so materially conditioned, we forget Krishna, and we think that we're the doer of things, and we think that we're actually the one who's personally victim in experiencing these problems or reactions. No, these problems, especially when we come to the platform of devotional service, are personally being managed by Krishna, so that we become purified enough to start remembering it more. It's really amazing, actually. And there's one more part I wanted to read. Yeah. So this is the important part in the second half of my point. But one is warned against such allurements, because entanglement again in such illusory pleasure means degradation of the self and further imprisonment in the material world. By this warning, one should follow one's vigilant intelligence only. So, yes, everything is a way for us to see Krishna's mercy. But if we're not fully realized of that, then we need to be very careful about what we're associating with and what we're consuming. Because a pure devotee can walk anywhere and always be thinking of Krishna, and thus not be affected by Krishna's illusory potency. But what does Krishna say? Daiviheshu gunamai mama maya duratyaya. This material energy of mine is very incredibly powerful. So when we're operating in the process of devotional service, especially here in New York City, we're going out and we're preaching and we're chanting, or we're doing preaching here in the temple or at home programs, whatever we're doing deity service, we're doing cooking, we're doing cleaning, we're still conditioned souls. And so that consciousness is required a lot of vigilance to understand that, yes, we're trying to think of Krishna, but we also have to understand what to rid ourselves from that's unfavorable to our practice of devotional service. So it's a balance between these two things. Having the desire to see Krishna everywhere, but then also recognizing, okay, maybe I can't remember Krishna all the time. And unfortunate as it is, it's a process that we have to come face to face with, and a reality that we have to come face to face with. Because otherwise it becomes fake, and we can end up actually cheating people. And this leads into my next point. Prabhupada talks about the Sri Ishopanishad in this purport. And there's kind of 3 verses in the Ishopanishad, or mantras as it's stated in there, that discuss this point of seeing everything, seeing the sun present everywhere, seeing the sun's illumination, or an illusion, not illusion, Allusion, to Krishna. The sun, of course, is an allusion to Krishna. So I thought I'd just choose this 6th verse from the Ishopanishad, because it's very, very important, because not only does it give us a nice way and a nice parallel to this verse in the Bhāgavatam, but it's actually also going to help us understand the 3 main types of devotees who are trying to see Krishna in different realizations. There's 3 main stages. Yastu sarvani bhutani yatma eva nupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate. He who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. Purport. This is a description of the Mahabhagavat, the great personality who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord's presence is realized in 3 stages. The Kanishta Adhikari is in the lowest stage of realization. He goes to a place of worship, such as a temple, church, or mosque. Amazing how Prabhupada uses that, temple, church, or mosque. according to his religious faith, and worships there according to scriptural injunctions. Devotees in this stage consider the Lord to be present at the place of worship and nowhere else. They cannot ascertain who is in what position in devotional service, nor can they tell who has realized the Supreme Lord. Such devotees follow the routine formula and sometimes quarrel amongst themselves, considering one type of devotion to be better than the other. Who has an idea of this example? And I'll give you a hint. Prabhupada uses it as temple, church, or mosque. So for me, I see this very often when we're preaching. There's people with a different religious faith that come up and they have devotion to Krishna. Of course, they don't know it's Krishna, but they have devotion to God. And that devotion is coming from incomplete knowledge. So, as Prabhupada says here, such devotees follow the routine formula. So, they do their job, they do whatever it is, and they go to church every Sunday, and they take their Eucharist. But then they don't think about God the rest of the time. Right? His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, I believe, also said this, that Christians are just, they're like Kanishta Adhikaris. It's a nice way to see it. So, yes, they have devotion for Krishna, they have devotion from the Lord. But the problem is that when you see that one type of devotion is better than the other, then you start having this illusory idea that what you're doing is better than anyone else. And so then you actually start, as Prabhupada's saying, you start quarreling amongst yourselves. So when we're preaching, we also have to be very careful when Christians or some people or even people of different practices are coming up and are trying to cause issues or arguments about which is better. We have to be very careful as to understanding where they're actually at. If someone's actually displaying devotion, then we can appreciate them and say, thank you very much, but, I'm not here to argue with you. And of course, they'll say the same thing. Oh, I'm not here to argue with you either. But we have to recognize that they're also trying to become devotees of God. So, and of course, we have this mentality in our devotional practice as well. Within the devotee community, I can speak for myself. This is like me. I have a terrible way to interact with devotees. I have no understanding that devotees are Krishna's associates. And so it's very important to recognize that, to recognize where we're at, and to have a desire to get to a higher platform, which leads me into my next point. Those who have attained the second stage of realization are called Madhyama Adhikaris. So first, there's 3 stages. We have Kanishta, and now we have Madhyama. These devotees observe the distinctions between 4 categories of being: the Supreme Lord, the devotees of the Lord, the innocent, who have no knowledge of the Lord, and the atheists, who have no faith in the Lord and hate those in devotional service. The Madhyama Adhikari behaves differently towards these 4 classes of person. He adores the Lord, considering him the object of love. He makes friends with those who are in devotional service. He tries to awaken the dormant love of God in the hearts of the innocent, and he avoids the atheists who derive the very name of the Lord. So naturally when we're preaching, this happens. You come to a stage of Madhyama because actually you have to come to a stage of Madhyama. You have to learn how to distinguish between who is actually a proper person to preach to and who is a person not to speak to. Who is a person to properly interact with, who is Krishna. All these different aspects come in that understanding on the Madhyama Adhikari platform. So this then, we're able to interact with devotees more properly. We're able to actually distinguish who is and who isn't a devotee, because this is important for preaching. However, this is not the main goal of what we want. The main goal is to get to a higher stage, which is the 3rd stage of realization, which is the Uttama Adhikari. So Prabhupada says here, the Uttama Adhikari, who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee does not discriminate between an atheist and a theist, but sees everyone as part and parcel of God. He knows that there is no essential difference between a vastly learned Brahmana and a dog in the street, because both of them are part and parcel of the Lord, although they are encaged in different bodies on account of the different qualities of their activities in their previous lives. Such a learned devotee is not misled by material bodies, but is attracted by the spiritual spark within them. However, those who imitate an Uttama Adhikari by flaunting a sense of oneness or fellowship, but who behave on the bodily platform, are actually false philanthropists. Wow, I'm feeling very attacked. The conception of universal brotherhood must be learned from an Uttama Adhikari, and not from a foolish person who does not properly understand the individual soul or the Supreme Lord's Supersoul expansion who dwells everywhere. This is extremely important because in our devotional practice, we naturally have the tendency, the false ego and the mind have the natural tendency to think that we're more advanced than we are. And you actually see one who's incredibly advanced doesn't put themselves out at all. They have no desire to sit on the Vyasa-san. They have no desire to go out of their way and give some crazy instruction to someone. No, their desire is simply to think of Krishna and serve the devotees. And then when that opportunity presents itself, then that's actually real humility. They're capable of sitting on the Vyasa-san. They're capable of doing these things, but in a consciousness of, I'm just simply trying to serve Krishna. So this is a very dangerous thing to think that we're more advanced than we are, because then we can actually end up committing offenses to devotees. We can end up doing a multitude of different things that become a hindrance. We actually end up watering the weeds that are surrounding the Bhakti Lata Bij, that are surrounding the seed of bhakti in our heart. And so I'm saying these things to remind myself as well that humility is so important in this practice. And you can express and experience that humility by going on your daily basis and then reflect on it and think of how much you actually thought of Krishna. How much were you actually chanting? How much were we actually thinking of Krishna in our chanting? All these different aspects. And through reflecting on these things, it's extremely beneficial. And another way to reflect on humility is by associating with devotees who are more advanced than we are. When we associate with those devotees, we see, we feel, and they display these actions that they're thinking of Krishna all the time. And it's so amazing. It's so inspiring. And this is the beauty of our practice, that we're not in this thing alone. Of course, in one sense, we're flying our own plane, as Srila Prabhupada said, and we're responsible for our own spiritual growth. But we're also, that responsibility entails the fact for us to go out of our way to seek the association of advanced devotees. Because when we seek the association of advanced devotees and we get that association, then through that bhakti can become transferred to us. And by that transformation, by that transferring, we become transformed into growing in our spiritual life, getting a taste for the holy name. So, the famous quote, of course, now you're thinking, okay, well, you're saying the Uttama Adhikari is the highest stage, but the Uttama Adhikari sounds like they don't go out and preach. They're just sitting and doing bhajan. And in one case, that can be true. And they're also doing an incredible benefit to the entire society by doing this. However, it's said that the best Gostyanandi is a Bhajananandi who preaches. So you have Gostyanandi, one who goes out and they do activities, they engage in service all the time and preaching. And then there's a Bhajananandi who's strictly fixed in bhajan. But better that we are both. Because if we're engaged and absorbed in our own sadhana, in our own bhajan, then we're actually able to go out and preach much more effectively. That becomes more imparted, and that conviction becomes more imparted to the people that we're preaching to. So I heard this really amazing quote by His Holiness S.B. Keshava Maharaj. He says, yes, it's important to be absorbed in service. And it's not that we're supposed to ignore being absorbed in service, but it's also a service to be absorbed. Sometimes we forget that aspect. We're so busy doing different aspects of service that we forget that actually our sadhana, our vows that we're taking for chanting Nam Japa, is actually the most important vow to our spiritual master. And by being more absorbed in this, then we can actually become more absorbed in our other services. So, naturally, when we grow further and further in this devotional practice, the vision of problems dissipate, but actually, ironically, sometimes the problems actually increase. But the vision of those problems dissipate. the more we progress, the less we see these things coming to us as problems, and the more we see it as Krishna's mercy, a way for us to remember Krishna. Because Krishna's seeing, Krishna knows. Krishna knows how good our japa is. Krishna knows how much we're reading. Krishna knows how much we're thinking of devotees in a proper way. So Krishna will give us things to make us remember him and become more purified. And through that purification, then we can actually dive deeper into the association of other devotees. Because then we realize, as in this bhajan, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is begging in the third verse, I do not find the strength to carry on alone the Sankirtan name, holy name of Hari. Please bless me by giving me just one drop of faith with which to obtain the great treasure of the holy name of Krishna. So this is what we're aspiring for. And the deeper we get absorbed in those desires, and the deeper we get, or the deeper we realize that we're not there yet, then that progression can grow. So everything here can be revealed through the holy name of Krishna. And unfortunately, I'm not speaking of this through realization, but through what our acharyas have taught us, through what my spiritual master has given me. And I'm just praying one day to achieve that point. But this is what our Siddhanta says. And the Guru gives us the holy name, and we need to be a beggar at the lotus feet of the Guru and the Shuddhanam devotees who are actually chanting. So then, what happens? We can actually see that reflection as being attached to Krishna. We can see Krishna present everywhere. So yes, our goal is to chant 24/7. And for chanting 24/7, then there's no question of us not seeing Krishna anywhere. There's no question of us forgetting Krishna. So I wanted to add some more Ishopanishad verses, but it's running a little low on time. So yeah, the basis of this class was that everything is revealed through Nam. So if we want to see Krishna present everywhere, we have to dive deeper in chanting the holy names. Param Brahmapuru wants to add a comment or a question or a correction. I'll just repeat it. Yeah. Mm. 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 Mm-hmm. Hmm. So the question online is, why do other religions exist if the goal is to come to Krishna? Right? Well, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th verse of the 4th chapter, Yaya tam mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. Mama vart manuvartante manusha partha sarvasha. So Krishna says that actually, as one approaches me, I reciprocate with him accordingly. And actually, respectively, all these paths are leading to me, O son of Pritha. So, yeah, the basis of different religions comes to the basis of also interactions of different modes of nature. As we see in the Bhagavad Gita, there's different practices of religion and different modes of nature. There's different forms of faith and different modes of nature. And based on what one is wanting, then Krishna reciprocates with that. So, it's not a problem that someone wants to practice a different religion, but the basis is to understand what the goal is. And those goals might differ in some different religions. Of course, I think Prabhupada has made it quite clear that the basis of any practice of religion should be to attain pure love of Krishna, pure love of God. But sometimes that isn't made very clear. And due to the fact that usually maybe someone might have more material desires, or someone this might just be working for them based on the time, place, and circumstance to approach Krishna. Just like what we were talking about in the Bhāgavatam, Shukadeva Goswami is describing this universal form of Krishna. It's not actually directly Krishna, but it's there for us to think of Krishna and to connect with Krishna. So I guess that's how I would respond to that. It's just like an incomplete form of knowledge. And so just like there's different levels of physics and understanding physics, there's also different levels to understanding God. So it furthers us to have more gratitude for what Srila Prabhupada and what the Acharyas have given us. Because I can't find anything higher than this. If someone can bring me something higher than this, then okay, I'll worship that. Even Prabhupada said, someone said, who's higher than Krishna? Prabhupada said, no one's higher than Krishna. And then Prabhupada said, if someone's higher than Krishna, then you tell us and we'll worship that person. So it's not like we're here to focus on some dogmatic structure. No, like this is given the highest understanding of reality. And that is experienced when we have a strong enough desire to understand it. Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayantite. To one who worships me with love, I actually give them the intelligence and knowledge by which they can come to me. But it starts with desire. So, based on our desires, based on our different ideas, Krishna reciprocates with us in different ways and gives us what is needed. Krishna Kripa Prabhu, would you like to add any? Oh, Mother Divyangi, you had something to say? Okay. No, you can say it out loud. I can repeat it. The mic is broken. Okay. Mm. Yeah, that's nice. Mother Divyangi, for the online viewers, is saying that association with Guru is like associating with the fire. If you're getting too close, and this word's too familiar, you get burned. But if you stay too far away, then you don't get the energy and the heat from that fire. So yeah, it's a very intricate balance. And of course, this deals with Guru, but this also deals with devotees. Like, we have to be conscious of the fact that everyone is trying to serve Krishna. We all have these different upadhis and anarthas that we're dealing with. And by associating with advanced devotees like Krishna Kripa Prabhu, we can actually attain a deeper sense of advancement, a deeper advancement, also a deeper sense of understanding what a devotee actually means. So, yes, this applies to Guru, but this also applies to devotees, and especially the pure devotees of the Lord. So yeah, thank you for that comment. Krishna Kripa Prabhu? Yeah. Right.
And the most amazing thing was, I got flack from people who were for the vaccine and who were against the vaccine because I gave any credibility to the other opinion.
Right.
And they said nasty things that I would say not even to an enemy. So
Wow.
we can, when there's some disagreement of opinion about devotees, if we criticize someone who has the opposite opinion, we can end up creating a Vaishnava apparatus that keeps us from getting Krishna training. Whether we like the original printing of the books, or whether we like the revised printing of the books, or whether we support the co-revised.
Hmm. Wow.
It's something to keep in mind. You're glorifying being absorbed and preaching, and it was reminding me how Sanatana Goswami glorified Harinat's Thakur,
Hmm.
and that he was an expert in both, and therefore he was the master.
Yeah.
And you quoted 4:11, but you said it was 4:10.
Oh, thank you for correcting me. Yayatamam Prapadyante is 4:11. 4:10 is Vitaraga Bhayakroda Manmayama. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Mercy of the devotees. So I guess I should summarize what Krishna Prabhu said for the audience online. The basis, the most important point I think he made was that we talked a little bit about how neophyte devotees will quarrel, and he had a post on Facebook talking about his conclusion with getting the vaccine or not getting the vaccine with this whole thing of COVID, and Prabhu was saying, either way, if I surrender to Krishna, things will work out okay. And then the whole explosion turned out of people who were against it or people who were for it and saying nasty things to Krishna Prabhu or nasty things to each other. So yeah, this is the basis of duplicitous and materialistic mentality. The basis is to understand that Krishna is actually in control of everything. Even in Ayurveda, it said that one of the most important points is to actually pray to Lord Vishnu for the medicine to work. So, yeah, we have to be, very, very, very clear about. And Prabhu also mentioned different opinions. Of course, the controversy of the fall of the jiva, all these different aspects. But these opinions are not meant for us to criticize each other. It's actually a way to force us to dive deeper in our sadhana and dive deeper in studying Shastra. Anyways, it's 9 o'clock. It's 8:59, about to be 9 o'clock. Thank you so much for just sitting through the class. I really don't have any qualification, but by the mercy of my spiritual master and the devotees and Shri Radha Govinda, I was hopefully able to say something that's of benefit. So, Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.